views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Open, the show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world to you. I'm your host, Gary Axelbank, filling in for Darren Jaime. And today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough. Coming up on today's show, we'll give you an update on what's been going on in the Bronx. Plus, Donald Trump threatens to destroy North Korea in his UN speech, and Republicans set to repeal Obamacare once again. And the investigation of Trump's former campaign manager continues. We'll discuss more today with our political commentator. After that, we'll hear from the River Spring Health Organization, and we'll find out how they go about helping the elderly through their many wonderful programs. And then we'll sit down with the CEO of the Foresight Collective to discuss the organization's mission to empower youth so that they can have successful futures. All this and much more is headed your way because now we are officially open. Hey there, I'm your host, Gary Axelbank, filling in for Darren Jaime, and today is Wednesday, September 20th. You are watching Open, a live program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to your TV set. We want to encourage you to stay connected to us. You can find us on Twitter at BronxNet TV and Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. Well, a lot has been going on over this busy week, and we'll catch you up with some Bronx updates. Before we get you started with some local news, we'll start with some international news. Yesterday, a devastating 7.1 earthquake struck central Mexico, damaging buildings and killing at least 216 people. Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto stated to the Mexican people the earthquake was a national emergency and has advised people to stay calm in the midst of this disaster. Currently, Mexico City's airport suspended all flights, and all flights into Mexico City have been rerouted to other cities. The earthquake comes as the anniversary of the 1985 earthquake that killed 9,500 Mexicans. And as things happen, we will keep you updated with the latest news coming out of Mexico. Mayor Bill de Blasio has announced a plan to cut what is said to be the largest cause of greenhouse gases in New York City. The plan would require owners of buildings larger than 23,000 square feet to make them more energy efficient. The plan would affect 23,000 buildings in the city and call for strict standards in place by 2030, all in the name of fighting global warming. If passed by the city council, according to the mayor, nearly a quarter of the city's greenhouse emissions will be curtailed. The mayor said, "We are fighting this crisis like our lives depend on it," because in fact they do. Also, the mayor has vowed to work with Albany to ensure protections for residents of affordable housing in a way that landlords will benefit financially, which will help them keep rent stable. In other news, Toys R Us, one of the largest toy stores in the world, has filed for bankruptcy. The company is seeking its way out of $5.5 billion in debt due to years of being acquired by KKR, Bain Capital, and Vornado Realty Trust, and what was a $6.6 billion leveraged buyout in 2005. According to Forbes, over the past few years, the retailer has been in tough competition with companies like Walmart and Amazon, which offer the same toys but for cheaper prices. The company says the bankruptcy is a way to work with financial creditors so they can get back on their feet. In the meantime, 16,000 Toys R Us and Babies R Us stores will remain open as the holiday season approaches. The MTA will be adding bike racks to the BS23 and Q50 bus lines. The new racks are part of a pilot program, Bike and Ride, that launched in 2015. The purpose of the program is to give cyclists an opportunity to reach destinations they would have access to on a bike. The new racks will give commuters the option to cross the Whitestone Bridge along a bus route running from Flushing, Queens to Co-op City in the Bronx. The racks, that are called 10-second brackets by Sportswork, will hold 2 bikes at a time and will be placed on the front bumper of the bus. They are expected to be installed in the spring. Elected officials in the Bronx have signed a letter to Amazon's CEO Jeff Bezos, pitching many reasons why the Bronx is the best place for its next headquarters. The Bronx Borough president mentioned the advantages of being 6 miles from LaGuardia, 20 minutes from Kennedy Airport, and just a train ride from Manhattan, while other politicians boasted about the Bronx's cultural pride. This comes just as Amazon announced that it was seeking a site for its second headquarters and issued a nationwide request for proposal. In other local news, Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. and Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito announced a $500,000 allocation toward the expansion of the Pergonis Theater. Reporter Arlene Makoko has the story.
Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr. and Speaker Melissa Mark Viverito have a lot to celebrate here at the Pergonis Theater, just blocks from the Grand Concourse. Both announced the allocation of $500,000 towards an expansion project for the site, with the goal to extend the laughter and joy that the arts provide to the community, the city, and to the world.
I know the value that arts has brought to my life and how it has helped me shape a different perspective on the world and on the community that I live in. So being able to invest in a Pergonis that does work with our schools, that does work with our senior centers, that creates new projects that really speak to our reality, our cultural reality, our history, all of that is important.
It's a performing theater that since 1979, through the direction of founder and current artistic director Rosalba Rolon, has built an international following for their work in promoting Latin culture and heritage. The project will happen right here at this house, dubbed the White House.
We're tearing it down and building a small new building that's going to house beautiful programs. I don't know if you noticed, but we also have an exhibits program. So not only do we have a great performing arts venue, we also have a small gallery where we can exhibit artists, local artists, throughout the year.
This would be the first major capital project and renovation of our South Bronx campus.
Both walked in and around this 130-seat theater that has played host to countless events featuring Latin visual, multimedia, and performing artists. After visiting this garden oasis, then flexing his own performing arts muscles on this iconic Steinway piano, Diaz Jr. called the Pergonis Theater great neighbors for partnering with government to better serve the needs of the community.
They serve as a paradigm for what is it that we look for in institutional partners, and certainly the amount of funding that we've been able to allocate working with Melissa Margarito will ensure that they will be partners for many years to come.
Performances will continue right here on this site, including one in October, the Harlem Hellfighters on a Latin beat. For this performance and others, just go to pergonisprtt.org. For BronxNet, this is Arlene Makoko.
Thank you, Arlene. When we come back, we'll catch up on the latest in politics. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
You've got pre-diabetes, but with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have pre-diabetes. Big time.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it. It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
We are neighbors and best friends.
I love my sister.
My heart doesn't see race.
Love is love.
Our family is no less than any other family.
Welcome back to Open. President Donald Trump, in his first address to the United Nations, threatened to totally destroy North Korea and restated that he would always put America first. Joining us to discuss this latest political issue and others, welcome political commentator Lee Bynes. Nice to see you again, sir.
Good to be back. Good to be back.
Well, you mentioned before we went on the air that it was scary. You don't like hearing anybody talk about literally destroying anybody's country, as abhorrent as many of us might think North Korea is. What do you make of what the president said at the UN yesterday?
Well, I would say that I, myself, and a lot of other people around the world were quite shocked and amazed at what they heard, because it's the type of language that you would hear in one of his tweets, as opposed to something that you would expect him to say on the world's grandest stage of all. And what the situation seems to be boiling down to, based on military analysts and commentators that have been preaching for years, if not decades, is that there really is no military solution to the North Korea issue. This is one that's got to be held, that has to be dealt with diplomatically and tactfully. That's not coming out of the White House right now simply because of who the president is. And secondly, our diplomatic force, our diplomatic presence has been reduced significantly since Trump became president of the United States, because he hasn't given the State Department the resources that they need to reach out in these most difficult times. And so the fact that we pretty much have Rex Tillerson, the State Department chief, MIA in a lot of instances, and a lot of the diplomatic work on this issue has been handed over to Nikki Haley, and she's a warmongering issue. I hate to say that, but she's very, very hawkish on North Korea, on Iran, and beyond, that there's not much of diplomacy being addressed here.
Aside from the specifics of suggesting or outright saying that you're going to literally destroy a country of 25 million people, the implications of the relationship between the United States and China, because it is likely if we were to do something violent and significant to North Korea, the Chinese would not be happy, and then all of a sudden you may have not only engaged North Korea, but you may have engaged, frankly, the potential for a world war.
Well, you know what? Russian President Vladimir Putin brought that up specifically, that this is not anything that will just remain on the Korean Peninsula. Secondly, the fact that you brought up China in this issue, the Wang Yi, the Chinese foreign minister, actually stated about 3, possibly 4 weeks ago, that the Chinese position is that they would be on the side of whoever was struck first. And if you listen to the language...
Whoever was struck first.
Struck first. In other words, if the North Koreans continue with their bellicose language and the test firing of the missiles and testing the nuclear detonations underground, as long as they don't actually strike first, the Chinese seem to be okay with that. However, the United States is putting this out on the table, that there is a preemptive strike possibility, and that could be extremely dangerous.
What is the line in the sand? I mean, firing dangerous missiles over Japan would certainly be seen to be inflammatory, but is that a line in the sand for them to be attacked, or do you literally wait for North Korea to do what it is, something specific, like literally drop a bomb somewhere or do something like that before the United States
well, that's why I think
takes action?
That's why I think we have to focus extremely carefully on the language itself, is because as far as I can see, Donald Trump has already drawn several lines in the sand that has already been crossed. In other words, if the North Koreans continue to launch rockets, they've continued to launch rockets. If North Korea detonates a nuclear bomb underground on their own turf, that's a red line that was not supposed to have been crossed. All of those red lines have been crossed. the bellicose language has not only ceased, but it's actually increased. So I would suspect that as far as the Chinese is concerned, as long as there's no loss of life, they will still support a North Korea existence.
By using this kind of language about North Korea, is the president either wittingly or unwittingly raising the profile of Kim Jong-un in his own mind by all of a sudden, gee whiz, I was just kind of playing around by myself. Now all of a sudden I'm like a player on the world stage, and I've even made it so that the U.S. president responded in a very large speech to me, raises his profile in the world stage.
Well, if it hasn't raised his profile on the world stage, it's definitely raised his profile and his significance amongst his people. With them seeing their leader, the North Korean people seeing their leader facing the entire world down and literally winning, because up until now, no matter the sanctions that have been levied upon them, have done absolutely nothing. Their economy, I've been looking at their economy. There's a lot of evidence to say that they're actually doing quite well. The North Korean economy has grown by 4% over the last 3 years. You look in the country and you can actually see that there's a lot of construction going on. These are things that are not necessarily...
I have to interject.
Okay.
I mean, you don't know what you're seeing and what the reality is. I mean, if you say, I've been there and you stand on the border of South Korea in the demilitarized zone, you see this beautiful city right on the other side of the mountains. But it's of course a plant city because they have. So I'm not disagreeing.
No.
I'm saying it's very hard to gauge what really is going on over there.
But we do have economists that are looking at their situation. Sure, the sanctions have taken somewhat of a toll, but they have not done so to the point where it's going to deter their actions. Another thing with regards to the sanctions is that although these recent ones have been set up by the UN and the UN Security Council, they have yet to go into effect, and we don't know how well all of the players around that are supposed to play a role in these sanctions are actually going to enforce them.
It would be nice if you and I could discuss this and solve the problems.
But we know that's not going to happen. It hasn't happened in 40 years.
But let's just move on to something else. One of the other biggest issues right now on the national stage is the potential repeal again of Obamacare. You don't know any more than I or anybody else knows. Do you think it will happen, I guess, is a hard to answer question. And if it does happen, what is the effect of that on millions, hundreds of tens of millions of Americans?
Well, this attempt, as the previous 2 or 3, is being held close to the vest. We have no idea what's going to be in the plan. This is a plan that's going to have to be voted on before September 30th, so it won't have the CBO. The Congressional Budget Office will not have an opportunity to score this bill to tell us exactly how many people are going to lose their coverage. We do understand, and we can say for certain, that any plan that the Republicans do come up with cannot meet what the Obamacare is delivering right now.
What do you think their real agenda is? I mean, it's clear the president has a thing about President Obama, and not only wants to oppose some of his policies, but wants to wipe his name off. But for the Republicans in general, what is their agenda here? I mean, there are issues with Obamacare. We know that our deductibles are too high. The rates being set by the providers are, of course, way too high. You just have to examine your own medical bills to know that. But those things can be roped in. What is the value of repealing it before you have a replacement plan?
Well, you know what?
From their perspective.
I wonder, and one can only wonder, that if this last-ditch effort, this rush to get something passed, anything passed, might be to combat what's happening on the Democratic side. Bernie Sanders is gaining a lot of traction with the single-payer idea, the universal care for everyone. Senator Graham was on CNN yesterday talking about we've got to do something to stop the advancement of socialism. And so if you have any idea of how healthcare is being delivered in other countries around the world, this is something that in the
So you think there is a political philosophy
absolutely,
at the bottom of this?
Absolutely. They have to get something passed to combat Bernie. And Bernie is bringing on a lot of Democrats who fought tooth and nail to keep universal health care
And I can add that in New York State, there is a bill that passed the Assembly, and it was a vote short in the Senate for single-payer health care in New York State. It came perilously, I use the word perilously from a Republican point of view,
yes,
perilously close to being passed. And so that's probably the kind of philosophical and actual action that they want to oppose. Lee, we are out of time, and unfortunately, we didn't solve the world's problems, although we gave it a shot.
There you go.
Always great to have Lee Bynes with us.
Always good to be here.
And what we will do is take a quick break, and we'll be back with more of the show right after this.
I'm only 17, but I know about investing. Believe in something, buy shares in it, watch it grow. So, what if you could invest in the future? The future of kids, like a stock. Not the kind of stock that's about making money, but a stock for social change. A whole new kind of investment called Better Futures. When you invest, it helps kids go to college. I could be one of the first college graduates from my family, the first philanthropist from my neighborhood. And if I'm the first, then maybe there's a second and a third. Believe in us, invest in us, watch us grow. My name is Sydney, and I'm your dividend.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving, the ultimate party foul.
Welcome back to Open, celebrating a century of care. The River Spring Health Organization has provided the elderly with assistance and care to live great lives. Here to tell us more about the organization and the 100 years, although she probably wasn't here at the beginning. Please welcome River Spring Health registered nurse Manuela Martinez. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you, Gary, for
And
inviting me.
before we even start, thank you for being a nurse in the borough of the Bronx. It's so important, and you know, I would say, for me and for anybody who's been ill or is elderly, we take our nurses for granted, and it's a shame because you do just incredibly great work.
Well, thank you for that.
Talk to me about River Spring Health. 100 years. Why has River Spring Health been able to survive for 100 years?
Well, we're under the umbrella of Hebrew Home, which is the nursing home located in Riverdale. they celebrated their 100th anniversary this year, and I work for the River Spring at Home component of
Right.
it, which provides home care services in the community. We've been around for about 5-6 years now, with a membership exceeding 10,000 members.
For all of us, again, thinking about things that we take for granted,
Mhm.
your mom or your father or your aunt or your uncle gets older, and they say, well, okay, we'll get an aide or we'll get somebody to stay with them because, of course, they can't stay alone.
Yes.
But this is a very difficult job. Are we able to have enough qualified people to do that job so that we can serve the people who really need it?
Right now we do. We really do have a lot of vendors that provide us with the aids that we send to service the members that we enroll in our program. We have offices in Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, and we service...
And the Bronx.
And the Bronx. And we service all the boroughs, Suffolk County, Westchester County, and Long Island. And we do have the resources to provide the care.
What characterizes the nature of care? Like there are a lot of organizations out there, and they say, well, we do it this way.
Yes.
What are the kinds of things that you do at River Spring Health that really, make it distinctive and, give it kind of a personality?
That's very important. I'm glad you asked, because our plan is specific to the need of the consumer, the resident who really seeking help. It's not a cookie-cut type of plan. The nurse conducts an assessment, identify the needs of the individual, and working together with the other disciplines, physical therapy, social worker, OT, respiratory, comes up with a plan specific for that individual.
And that's very encouraging because, frankly, for my mom, I wouldn't want somebody who knew how to take care of somebody else. You've got to assess who they are, but then the key is having the resources to be able to do all the, whether it's physical therapy or whatever else. What are the difficulties, what are the challenges to keeping what you do consistent so that you can keep the quality of care consistent and, of course, keep clients happy?
Well, we provide a lot of in-services to the staff. The nurses make regular visits to the member to identify any changes in their functioning and health status. And the social worker also makes visits to assess and provide their caregivers, their family members, with resources to provide them with emotional support and information that is available to them in the community.
People are living longer, obviously, and that's a good thing. Life is beautiful and life is wonderful, but it really makes a challenge because you say, okay, we've got X number of clients right now, but over time you're going to have to keep growing. Are you able to grow, or are there things like funding or other things that are going to be needed to help the structure of the organization grow and do better?
Well, all our members need to have Medicaid. It's billed to Medicaid strictly. So we're lobbying and looking closely at the changes that may affect the Medicaid insurance that's presently being
negotiated.
Targeted, yes,
right.
Because that will affect the delivery of the care. And also, we like to empower the population out there and make them aware that these services are available. And the stigma that comes with asking for Medicaid and asking for help is something that is a challenge. So we work in the community, we empower the family members with information, and we do a lot of outreach also to help get the information out there.
I want to talk about that for a moment. Let's talk about the idea that somebody may be living alone, or a caregiver says, I got to go to work every day, and now my mom or my father is no longer able to care for themselves. What should they know about, what should they do that can help them get care? Because they're going to say, I can't afford it, I'm not enrolled in this, I'm not enrolled in that.
Yes.
There's a lot of wonder out there. How do we close that gap?
Like I said, the outreach is very important, and we need to reach these people through programs like this one and let them know that the resources are there, that they're available. And even if they don't have Medicaid, they can still seek out information and see what's available to them, and we help them with the Medicaid application process as well.
In the Bronx, specifically, there are many people who speak Spanish, and so, frankly, my Spanish is not that good. I understand a little bit, but they not understanding what we're saying, of course, unless they use closed captions or something.
Yes.
What do you do, or what can you do to reach out to people who don't speak English? And of course I said Spanish, but we are multilingual in the Bronx. How do we reach those people who need and deserve the same care as everybody else?
Well, we have a large staff of Spanish-speaking nurses, social worker, and management, as well as a language bank that we use telephone for interpretation. Not only Spanish, all languages there.
Great.
And with the CD Pass program, which is the Consumer-Directed Personal Assistance Program, the family members that have a challenge with the language of English can prick the person that they want to provide the services. It can be a family member or a neighbor or a friend who will work in the capacity of the aide, because that way the culture and the sensitivity that the client needs is provided by a loved one.
It's very important that somebody who cares for somebody else be compatible with that person. I know some of the organizations, they'll put out like a little video or something where the potential caregiver says, well, my name is Gary, and this is what I like to do, and I'm that kind of person, and the family can choose. What do you do to help the family find somebody who is compatible so that, I don't know, my mom likes to sing and dance. We have somebody at least who's sympathetic to that kind of
Well, that's
activity.
information that the intake nurse gathers at the initial visit to the home and brings it to the office and makes a narrative and presents it to the undercare team and lets them know what specific needs this client wants, needs, and send an aide that's sensitive to that culture.
Right.
Because we do service Chinese and Indian and Russian and...
Listen, the biggest problem with doing that in the Bronx is you're going to leave somebody out, and we never want to leave anybody out in the
all
borough of the
nationalities.
Bronx. Yeah, of course, that's our home. That's who we are in the borough of the Bronx. You had talked about, and I had asked about the availability of the number of home care aides. You work with a number of different providers, or do you have your own kind of stable
We
of
venture out the
people?
cases. We
you
have
do?
over 100 agencies that we use their aides to provide the services.
Do you have the sense that people who need care are getting care, or is it still a concern that there are people who need care, but you know what, we still haven't gotten, because they're alone, and maybe they're elderly or whatever, and they still haven't gotten care?
They exist.
They're out there. Yeah.
Oh yes, absolutely. I'd be lying if I said there is.
We may be making assumptions that we shouldn't make in that you deal specifically with the elderly. Somebody who's younger who has a stroke can be in a very similar situation, needing physical therapy, needing home care, and all that kind of thing. Do you provide, or can you provide home care for people who might not necessarily be 65 years and older?
21 and over.
21 and over.
Yes.
Wow. What about, again, navigating the systems? I mean, how difficult is it for, again, I always want to reach out to the TV and reach out to the people who are out there and let them understand this is available to you. How do you get out there and get
We have
to
a
those
large
people?
outreach department in all the boroughs that use newspaper, television, radio, billboards, bus stops, flyers, and an outreach team that goes out to the streets.
So I guess just to summarize, we certainly want Medicare to stay strong. Medicaid, excuse me. I don't want to make that mistake. Medicaid to stay strong so that people can access the service. And also, we want to just wish you good luck, another 100 years, so that you can be cared for when you're older, I can be cared for, and even right now, all the people that we know and love who are getting old, We're getting older, that's a good thing, but we need
Yes,
to have care.
we need it, yes.
Thank you so much, and thanks all my friends at River Spring Health,
I
because
certainly will.
they're providing services that we often overlook, but we desperately need.
Yes. Thank you very
Manuela
much.
Martinez, thank you for your time.
Thank
this
you very much
morning
for
on
having
Open.
us.
Okay, you ought to stay tuned because we'll be right back.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund breeding.
No.
Let me try. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out words.
Playing world music.
What?
I give up.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
Behold the angry giant. Behold the angry giant. Behold the angry giant. Behold the angry giant. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Welcome back to Open. Through their many workshops, Foresight Collective has helped many students prepare for college and better futures. Joining us to talk more about the organization, please join me in welcoming Foresight Collective CEO Eric Castro. Nice to have you with us, sir.
Thank you.
And the CFO is Anna Isakulian. Nice to have you, Anna. Eric, let's start with you. Foresight Collective, if I were to ask people what's one of the biggest problems in the Bronx right now, they would immediately say, we got to get our young people squared away. We got to get them into college and get them into careers. Talk to me about what you're doing at Foresight Collective.
Well, I like to start with the idea first. And the idea is the eye can't see what the mind doesn't know. And a little bit of the right information can take you a long way. So what we try to do is teach tangible skills to students that they wouldn't receive during their high school career or even their college career, such as public speaking, presentation skills, soft skills that are necessary for political dexterity and how to operate in a business.
How do you find this, you use the word students, the young people who are going to be part of it? Or do they come to you? Do you go to them? It's a difficult thing, almost like the last segment we talked about. How do you reach people who need care? How do you reach young people who need services?
Well, there's two things I do. I establish a satellite site, which is a college chapter, and I do client relations. So I assess the needs of the schools, and based upon their needs, we'll design workshops for them. To execute those workshops, we train college students to work with the high school students.
Oh, so it's almost like peer-to-peer, which is incredibly valuable.
Peer accountability, almost like a synergy. As the college students help the high school students, the college students receive something in the process as well through giving back and through helping others.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned you get them through schools. These are high schools that you get them through?
Correct.
Or even colleges?
Well, we train both the college students to execute the services, and we work with the high school students.
Mm-hmm. About how many young people do you work with in total right now?
Last semester in the spring, we impacted about 500 students.
Wow, isn't that wonderful? And what happens to them? Like the goal is to get them in college or through college. And do you track them? I mean, just give me. Well, I'm looking for the end result, I guess. Is what I'm hoping is I got 500 new young people into the workforce.
Well, to talk about our End Horizon, I think Anna can take
All
control
right,
on that.
Anna, let's talk about that aspect of it.
So our End Horizon for students is we want them to become analytical thinkers, creative problem solvers. We want them to gain social intelligence, and we want them to apply all those skills in the workplace. So our ultimate goal is to pair the students with companies that will hire them as interns or as apprentices. We're developing the program where we will be able to pair them with corporations, startups, and companies that are interested in gaining access to this population.
What's the process to get them from point A to point B? It's very easy to say, okay, we'll get them and then we'll get them, to be qualified. But many of our young people, and what Eric said, which we'd have to agree with, they're missing the soft skills. They don't know how to present themselves. They don't know how to sit in a business office. How do you get them from point A to point B?
We are developing a very extensive program that has workshops, one-on-one follow-up sessions, and experiences that students will have throughout the program. And in the development of this program, we involve professors, we involve high school teachers, and different experts in the field.
And you're taking the word collective seriously, because it's not only some individuals or you or Eric working together, but it sounds like we talk about it all the time. It takes a village. We're bringing in as many resources as we can. Yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. As individuals, we can accomplish, but as a collective, we can accomplish much more. And the main thing we teach students, despite the technical skills or whatever topic we're doing, it's perspective. Because there's two ways to look at the world: eyesight and mindsight. Eyesight is judging according to appearances, based upon what you see. Mindsight is how you interpret what you see, looking beyond circumstances.
And how people come across and all those kinds of things.
Exactly.
In terms of putting it together, maybe this is really a question for Anna. It's a not-for-profit. Who pays for it? How do you raise funds? Is it do you work off grants? I mean, if it's a good program, and we'd like to think it is, we want to keep it going. How do you sustain it financially?
We are a 501c3 nonprofit.
Right.
So ultimately, nonprofits receive a lot of their donations from foundations. Right now, we are working mostly with individuals who give us money to run our program.
So it's individual funded.
Yes.
But 500 young people is a lot of people, to keep going. And you have a large staff. You are building the staff. I mean, characterize kind of the size of the operation and the scope of the operation.
So our satellite site has 30 students right now, and we are looking to increase the number to 50.
Right.
As for our corporate staff, so to say, there are 5 people, and we're also looking to increase the number as well. So right now we do this work because we really care about it. We don't
clearly. You
and
just have to sit and chat with you for 2 seconds. You can find out that you really care about it.
And we want to attract people who also deeply care about this cause, and they want to contribute to it with their time, their dedication, and their resources.
Why do you care about it so much?
Well, I'm from Moscow, and I came here as an international student.
And when was that?
It was 3 years ago.
Okay.
And I actually got recruited on campus by Eric.
And the campus was Manhattan College?
Yes.
You had mentioned to me beforehand?
And the first time I sat on a round table during the workshop, and I spoke to the students who came, and I realized that there was a lot of work that needs to be done. And despite all the nonprofits out there, and I realized that I have the potential to do something as well. And Foresight really changed me. When I first came in contact with it, I lacked a lot of social skills. I lacked self-confidence, and Foresight really became a platform for me to develop myself. And in that, I really find a lot of motivation to help others.
Clearly, it comes right through everything you're saying. I'm just curious, because I was not aware that you had recently come from Russia. It must be fascinating for you to be here in America, to see this, to be part of this, and to be able to tap into, frankly, the opportunity that maybe Americans take for granted, right? And it must be incredibly inspiring.
Well, when I came here, I saw the United States was a perfect country, that everything here
Boy,
was
I wish that were true.
And I realized that a lot of work needs to be done, and I want to be the person.
Wow, isn't that a wonderful thing? You know, just to make a political statement, we talk about our immigrants all the time, but this is somebody who comes from another place who's clearly energizing what we do here. Eric, let's, from the same personal perspective, why is it so important to you to do this and work with young people?
I believe the world could be a very dark place if you let it be. And if you have the ability to be responsible and you're not responsible, when the bad things start happening, they happen because of you. And so if there's one word to sum up why I do this, it's responsibility. I believe that to whom much is given, much more is required.
Talk to me about how the program works. So somebody says, okay, I want to be part of this. Do they come in for classes? Do they meet with individuals? How much time do they spend? Give me the scope of kind of the operation and what it feels like for a person who's coming in to take the program.
What Foresight tries to be is their motorboat to their rowboat, their escalator to their stairs. We work with students that we have partnerships with their schools. So, for example, we partner with Discovery High School, which is right around the corner. And if you're a student at Discovery High School, you can attend our workshops. And all of our workshops are done on college campuses because we want to create that campus exposure. Last semester, 71% of the students we worked with had never been to college before. So it was a new experience for them.
And then you put them on a college campus and they begin to say, much like Anna did in a different way, opportunity. If I'm going to succeed here, I'm going to have to raise my game. I'm going to have to behave a different way. I'm going to have to talk a different way. And then do they sit in class with you? Do you kind of follow them around? Do they come in with their report card and you see their grades? How does that work?
So we actually prohibit auditorium settings or classroom settings for our workshops. We actually do round tables, just like this. We found it much more effective, much more relatable to talk to people. That interpersonal dialogue comes about better in the round table. So I started this when I was 17, and I found that classrooms people tend to be back, disengaged.
Yeah, they also have a method for not participating.
Precisely.
In other words, that's been ingrained for their years in school. Yeah. Anna, what's been most inspiring for you about being part of this? And you can even talk about anecdote about a young man or woman that you met.
I met a young man who told me, I'm a student in accounting, and he told me that he also wants to study accounting. And I was very surprised because I haven't met many people who are that young and say they want to study that. And we sat down and talked about different options that are available in the field, and he kept on coming back to the same workshop, actually, the same seminar. It was a college readiness seminar, and I was, as we were talking more and more, I realized that he felt like there was something that he wants to be a part of.
He was as compelled as you are, so to speak.
Yes.
So that's a wonderful thing to know that you inspired somebody. Listen, we're out of time. How do people get in touch with the Foresight Collective?
Go to our Facebook, Foresight Collective, go to our website, foresightcollective.org.
Yeah, they're putting that information on the screen for you. So
send us an email and we'll respond in 12 hours.
Yeah, listen, do that, folks, okay? You know, we got to get our young people squared away and situated, and opportunities are there. You guys are bringing it to them, Eric Castro and Anna Isakulian. Both, thank you so much for being on Open this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Great.
Thank you.
We will take a break. We'll be right back with more right after this.
They said I have troll teeth.
That my voice sounded like a possessed baby doll.
That no one would ever love someone as stupid as me.
That I was fat, ugly.
Disgusting.
The effect of bullying is potent.
We will no longer be the silent majority.
Now, when you see online bullying, there's something you can do about it.
We're gonna take action with the I.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness.
I am a witness, and so are you.
'Cause I'm gonna stand
Hi, I'm David Lesh, legal correspondent to the morning show Open. If you have a legal question that you'd like me to answer, please send me an email at davidlesh@bronxnet.org, and I will address it on our Ask Your Lawyer segment.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it. It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Welcome back to Open. For many years, Bargotis Ravioli has been feeding Bronxites with its homemade pasta. Reporter Sabrina Burgess had the opportunity to sit down with the owner to tell us all about Bargotis Ravioli and their history.
Borgatti's Ravioli and Egg Noodles has been providing the Bronx community with fresh products for over 3 generations, showing that the Borgatti family is truly skilled in making fresh pasta.
My grandparents, my father's parents, who opened the store, and my father had five brothers at that time as well. And my grandfather was 50 years old, and my grandmother was 48 years old, and my father was 17 when the store opened.
Borgatti's Ravioli and Egg Noodles has been giving classic handmade products to the Bronx community for over 3 generations. What was the inspiration behind creating this shop, Borgatti's?
I can only guess that thinking of my grandparents at a time in their life, they were middle-aged, and they had 6 sons, and this was something that was taking place during, I guess, during the Depression. My grandmother used to make pasta at home, so I don't know what took place at a dinner table one day, but I'm sure they just thought of, why don't we just try to open up a little shop and sell what we make every day for dinner to those who live in this community.
So I'm sure that all his kids and all their kids worked here.
Yes, when the store opened 81 years ago, all 6 boys were helping out. The oldest was 27, the youngest could have been 12. Like I was saying, my father Mario was 17 at the time, and one of the sons, which was my Uncle George, who was the second oldest, he actually made a ravioli form out of wood because they were making the raviolis by hand, and that they didn't have a machine yet at that time.
For the family, working in Borgatti's, even for a short while, has become a rite of passage.
I had the opportunity to work with my dad, of course, for about almost 40 years. He passed away several years ago. I started out here, I was like an 18-year-old kid, and I figured like working with my dad gave me an opportunity to know him and see what kind of man he was. And with that, my son now is also working here and attending college as well. And I could see a parallel there, like me with my father, and now we with my son.
Was there like a big need for pasta? Did like a lot of people like pasta?
This neighborhood at the turn of the century, many of the Italian families were moving into the area because there was a lot going on for the skilled laborers. My understanding is that at the time the Bronx Zoo was being made, and a lot of the Italian artists who would work with the rock and do sculptures and all were starting to come up to this area to live. So you did have quite a bit of Italian families living in this area.
After learning more about the family-owned business throughout the many years, pasta maker and owner introduced me to all the different pastas made at Borgatti's.
Can you tell me a little bit about the different pastas that you have?
It's all an egg noodle dough that we make, and through the years we started to make different types of egg noodles. We branched out and started to make a spinach egg noodle, as well as a whole wheat noodle, a carrot, a tomato, basil with squid ink, a whole wheat spinach, a mushroom. Our business has changed. Many of the families do still come back to shop, but with, I guess, what goes on today with a lot of the food shows and cooking, this area, of course, has become a melting pot for many families, and many of them are taking in the Italian cuisine and very interested in ravioli, fresh pasta, so we find them, they do come to the store to shop.
So this is a family business. Are there any like family recipes?
Well, our family recipes, of course, have to do with the fillings we make for our raviolis, as well as, of course, for our egg noodles. And it's just, there's no secret other than always using good quality ingredients.
What's next for Borgatti's?
Well, Borgatti's, of course, is starting to grow with e-commerce. So we had ventured into online shipping, which we are doing, and we're getting ready to launch with Amazon.com, because as much as those who still come here, we find that those who know this neighborhood, this business, have an opportunity to find what we make here on their tables at home.
For more information on the shop, visit Borgattis.com. This is Sabrina Burgess reporting for Out in the Open.
Well, thank you, Sabrina. All good things must come to an end, unfortunately, and we have come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us, and to you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's Open, you can catch the re-cablecast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum 67 and Verizon Fios 33, or of course watch anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. We'll see you around town.